A sudden shift this week in the NFL draft landscape has opened the door for the Eagles, and Howie Roseman might be readying a bold move up in round one for a prospect once considered off his board. Plus, is the tide turning on Dallas Goedert's future in Philly? My one insider says A.J. Brown's name has been mentioned in a potential trade up into the top 10? Kind of ridiculous. I'm Thomas Mott. This is the Thomas Mott Show. Okay, so the NFL draft, it's 7 days away, and there's been a ton of news dumps in the past 48 hours, all outside of Philadelphia, but all that have dramatic impacts on what goes down inside the Birds' war room. Plus, there's new changes in the Dallas Goedert trade news, also top 30 visit drama, and Howie Roseman's press conference just a few days ago, all of which matters in a big way, and I'll get to those. But the big talking points around the NFL, say the past 48 hours, is the meteoric rise of quarterback draft stock heading into basically this time next week when the draft opens and picks start flying. First, though, quick PSA, giving away this signed Nolan Smith, Jordan Davis, and Quinyon Mitchell helmet to a subscriber right after the draft, so make sure you guys are subscribed. It's also showing still about 48% of you guys who watch my show are not subscribed, so if you are subbed, let me know down in the comment section how long you've been a subscriber of my show. Curious where you guys are at. Now, why should we focus on quarterbacks in the draft when Philadelphia already has a brilliant one who just won Super Bowl MVP and just yesterday was recently named Time Magazine's top 100 most influential people in 2025? Well, because 2 weeks ago, there were only 2 guaranteed quarterbacks being mocked to be taken in round 1, leaving 30 other positions not named quarterback, aka the ones the Eagles actually want to take, ahead of the Birds before pick 32. But fast forward to today, and 3 more quarterbacks have started flirting with a first-round selection, including Ole Miss's Jackson Dart, who I think is the most obvious one here, as both myself and The Athletic's Jordan Schultz think he will not fall out of round 1. So we go from 2 quarterbacks in round 1 to now 3 with Dart. But 2 others are also emerging now as potential late first rounders or early second rounders in Alabama's Jalen Milroe and Louisville's Tyler Shough, both of which I personally don't think are worthy of being first round picks in this year's draft, but clearly other NFL teams do. With Tom Pelissero noting yesterday that Shough has thrust himself into the next tier conversation with Shedeur, Jackson Dart, and Jalen Milroe, and many scouts and coaches rank him above at least one of the other most heralded players. And mock drafts are echoing this, with Mel Kiper's recent ESPN mock draft having Dart going 29 of the Browns and Shough vaulting all the way up to 34 with the Giants. I mean, just yesterday, the Browns GM literally called Jalen Milroe a, quote, rare physical talent, maybe the only quarterback who's faster than Lamar Jackson. And if all of this quarterback drama is actually true, and we don't just see 2 quarterbacks in round 1, but 3, 4, or 5, it's going to completely shift how everybody views, especially the latter part of night 1 of the NFL draft. I mean, that's 5 non-quarterback players who then shift back and get closer to Philadelphia and their ability to select them late in round 1. Definitely something to keep an eye on. Now, with that, of course, the questions of the Eagles trading up in round 1 to get one of these falling players remains kind of on everyone's mind, but still obviously a mystery. Although I've seen plenty of mock drafts suggesting Philadelphia, if they were to trade up, could go get Marshall edge rusher Mike Green. To which everyone in my comment section immediately goes, Thomas, Howie Roseman's recent comments on Tom McShay's show about players with a history of violence against women will never be scouted in Philadelphia. Mike Green is off the Eagles' board. And I technically agree with that. I did a whole show on Mike Green and the 2 separate allegations that didn't have police reports that are all a little bit confusing if you want to go ahead and check that one out. But I do think Howie Roseman's recent press conference when he was asked about this exact topic has shed some light on a possibility of a player like Green still being on the Eagles draft board.
We have a process. We have an objective process that we use. We live in a country where you're innocent until proven guilty, and so we try to abide by the judicial process. But I think, to get in kind of the details of what we do, that's part of our internal dynamics that I probably wouldn't want to get into, but certainly we try to not make it subjective is basically what I would say, so that we get in a situation where if we really like a player, we can make excuses for that player. So we try to have objective criteria when it comes to the issues that you're asking me about. But it is important to us, the people that we bring in this building, and that we know we can win with really good people, and we also know that young people make mistakes in other areas. But that was one that was, on my heart when I was talking about it, and something that we believe in as an organization.
Now, of course, I do think you can read Howie's comments there a bunch of different ways, but I think having accusations in a player's past versus actual conviction is the difference, and it's all going to come down to how the Birds internally view Green as a prospect. If they A, like Green, B, think the accusations are false or don't really agree with them, and C, think he's an actual trade-up prospect, to me it sounds like a guy like Mike Green, kind of the most polarizing edge rusher in this year's draft class. I mean, #1 in sacks in the FBS this past season, really could be the guy to keep an eye on for Philadelphia if he were to slip past the late teens and still be around there in the early 20s. And just so we're clear about trading up in the NFL draft, teams in Howie Roseman's position this year historically like to do it a bunch, as in the last 10 drafts, teams with the final picks in round 1 have traded up or down 5 times, with the Eagles themselves moving up in the first round in 4 of their last 6 drafts. Still, though, the one flaw in my plan or Howie's plan to trade up in the draft for a Mike Green or a Nick Emenwari or any of these other top first-round draft picks Philadelphia would have to move up to go ahead and get is the fact they've not brought any of them in for a top 30 visit. As the final day to have prospects out to the NovaCare complex came and went this week, and thanks to Anthony DeBona, we have the final list of all 25 players that visited Philly here. And yes, 25 visits means they're 5 visits short, but we can still find out that they had somebody earlier on in the year, a couple of weeks ago, because you need official reporting on that. But as it stands right now, we know of 25 players who have gone to Philadelphia for a top 30 visit. And on that list of 25 are 2 notable exceptions. The first of which, the only person who actually has a legit first-round grade that the Eagles brought in was Malaki Starks. They did not bring in Trey Amos, no Jahad Campbell, obviously no Mike Green, no Nick Emenwari. All these trade-up candidates I talked about have not gone on a call up to Philadelphia for a meeting. And if you believe Howie Roseman, once again this week, he doubled down on the Birds draft philosophy of cherishing the chance to bring in 30 players who they actually really like and want to draft.
I think that we have changed a little bit in how we approach the top 30, and like everything, it's an information gathering process for us. The whole draft process is gathering information, constantly gathering information. Nick and I are on the phone all the time talking to people that we know in college football, trying to get to know these guys as well as we can so we can make good decisions. So for us, it's really just trying to fill in a lot of the blanks. And the more we get to know people, the more that we expose them to not only us, but people around us, the better we get a feel for them. So we think they're incredibly valuable for us. Obviously everyone's got their own way of looking at things. But at the same time, we only have 30 of them. So we got to do more work on a lot more guys in this draft than just the 30 guys that come here. But we like that process, and we really like involving everyone in the building. We have a really good building. We have really good people who have good instincts on people, good instincts in their field, and being able to utilize those people in our building, see how they operate with the people that they would have to be dealing with every day, we think is a valuable part of the process.
And while sure, they can still bring somebody in who they didn't bring in for a top 30 visit, but it's been very rare in Roseman's history, as the past couple of drafts, the only second-round pick, for instance, that didn't have a top 30 visit was Cam Jurgens back in 2022. It's possible, but very rare. And so not having these first-round draft picks into Philadelphia is, again, a telltale sign to me. The other sign, though, is the fact that we keep talking about tight end, and yet tight end is missing from the top 30 visits. Philadelphia did not bring in a single tight end for a top 30 visit over the past month. Think about that. I mean, Dallas Goedert has been the trade news like every single week this year. Yet if Philadelphia was really preparing to ship their starting tight end out of Philadelphia and take one early in the draft, wouldn't they at least met with a couple of them the past couple of weeks? I mean, Goedert was number 3 last season in receiving yards, targets, and touchdowns on this Birds offense. Is Howie really going to ship him away and give all those targets to a rookie? Plus, the Ravens are now reportedly shopping Mark Andrews, which adds further trade competition for Philadelphia, as a team could get a cheaper price for Andrews, leaving Philadelphia on the short end of a Goedert trade. And while obviously Philadelphia can still draft a tight end at some point in the draft who did not come for a top 30 visit, it just seems to me like if they actually were serious about a tight end, they would have brought him in for a top 30 visit. Do you guys not find that weird? And when asked this exact question earlier this week, Howie Roseman essentially said they want best available versus having to fill holes with their picks in the draft.
The way we look at the draft is it's a separate entity to anything else that's going on. We got to make good decisions in the draft based on who the players are that are available in the draft. We can't make up any positions and make them better than they're not. We have to really have a true process. So it really doesn't affect us. We try to do as much as we can at any position in free agency to try to make sure that we're not in a position where there is needs. Of course, we're not a perfect team, and there's always going to be areas that we're looking to improve. And, honestly, that's going to happen even the day after the draft. We're going to continue to have areas that when we look at our depth chart, we'll go, man, it would be great to add a player here. So the player acquisition period, this is a huge part of it, but it's certainly not the end.
Now, of course, don't take this the wrong way. Maybe me pointing out that 0 tight ends have been brought in for a top 30 visit is my way of just convincing myself that Dallas Goedert isn't going to be traded because I want to keep him in Philly. I mean, just this afternoon, Jordan Schultz dropped another updated report stating, quote, Eagles tight end Dallas Goedert remains a name to watch on the trade market as the draft approaches. Interested teams believe Philadelphia would be open to future picks if they don't receive 2025 draft capital. Goedert's in the final year of his deal and could be looking for a new contract as well. So if Schultz is right, then they do want to trade Dallas Goedert, and he could be moved any day now. This does remind me of a very similar situation to what happened with another aging Eagle a year prior in Hassan Reddick. Reddick wanted a bigger deal, Eagles said no, teams didn't want to trade for him straight up, and eventually Philadelphia landed a 2026 third rounder from the Jets instead of a 2025 third rounder. If Goedert ends up being traded, there's a real possibility the pick is for 2026 and not for sometime next week. And so I think the news this week in the entire NFL has turned out to be pretty darn good for Philadelphia. A chance to go ahead and keep Dallas Goedert as your tight end. B, more quarterbacks going in round 1, meaning better draft picks, not named quarterback, falling to Philadelphia at 32. And C, if they want a guy like Mike Green, who I think is probably as close to number 1 on their board as you could possibly get, Howie Roseman might have said, hey, we're still interested in a guy like him despite the allegations. All of these things, in my opinion, are good for Philadelphia. What's not good for the Eagles is perhaps the stupidest projected trade of the entire offseason posted just yesterday by Yahoo Sports' Kobe Lebowitz, sorry if I butchered your name, who said the Eagles should trade, wait for this, Devontae Smith and number 32 overall for Jalen Ramsey and the Dolphins' 13th overall draft pick, because apparently the Eagles could use a, quote, veteran leader at corner. Let me just give Kobe a little bit of advice here. Make sure you check and see if Ramsey hated Fangio while he was in Miami, because fact check, that's true. And also make sure he's not due $25 million this season and is over the age of 30. Personally, I don't know about you guys, but I am not trading away easily the best number 2 wide receiver in the NFL and definitely a top 5 wide receiver if he wasn't playing alongside A.J. Brown in the entire league for a washed-up, expensive, over-the-age diva cornerback. Honestly, not sure why I brought this up, but I got a good laugh at it, and I thought you guys would as well. Which quickly leads me into the final story, and I say final because I did not want this part anywhere near the beginning of my video because it's so ridiculous, but disgraced Eagles media personality Howard Eskin put out a tweet today, first off mentioning the aforementioned Devontae Smith mock trade for Jalen Ramsey, but then added, quote, interesting story on possible Eagles trade of Devontae Smith. In many cases, I just consider these reports social media fodder. However, I had heard A.J. Brown's name in some trade talks with the Eagles possibly moving into the top 10. Now, of course, I could spend the next 5 minutes explaining the pros and cons of trading A.J. Brown and speculate who they could be targeting with this hypothetical trade into number 10. But one line shuts this entire rumor down from the start. If the Eagles traded A.J. Brown before June 1st, aka during the NFL draft, it would result in a dead salary cap hit of around $31.6 million for 2025. They traded him after June 1st. The Eagles would have around $10.8 million in dead cap space from Brown in 2025 and $20.8 in dead cap space in 2026. So I'm not even going to speculate on this. There is a 0% chance A.J. Brown is traded next week, and this rumor from an Eagles insider is an absolute nothing burger. And the NFL draft is 7 days away, and the craziest stat to finish today with is the fact that at this point, 7 days away from night 1, is the latest we've ever seen 0 trades pre-draft in round 1. In almost every single draft of the past 10 seasons, there's been somebody trading picks before the NFL draft, moving up or down in round 1. So far, every single team, at least in the first round, still has their initial pick they started with. So will we get a trade in the next 7 days? Will we not? Keep an eye on it here. I'll cover it. I'm Thomas Mott. It's going to be a crazy week next week. This has been the Thomas Mott Show.